Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Promethean Tides. I'm General, and as always, I'm joined by Breaker. What is going on, Breaker?
Oh, snap. Moral nihilism isn't true when you find out what Gödel's incompleteness theorem's implications for rationality and sciences as a whole really are.
No, Jesus Christ. Yeah, we'll probably get into a little bit of that. Um, but figured that we just I mean, I guess welcome everyone. Welcome to the show. If you like what we're doing here, remember to leave a like and a subscribe and a bell and a comment and I don't know.
God damn it, the bell is my thing. Now I have to pat you on the back until you become so self-indulgent that you slowly realize that you're acting like a total nerd in public.
Yeah, so
Just like Sam Harris tends to do.
that's
The
right.
great meta-modern comedian and boxer Sam Harris.
He keeps getting away with it. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. He's already responsible for like 3 school shootings at this point. I don't know.
um yeah, okay. So yeah, okay. So yeah, we'll just hop right into the news. We have Kevin McCarthy delivers first remarks after winning House Speaker. Nice. I guess Kevin McCarthy won. This isn't necessarily something that makes me like super duper ultra happy, but I mean, I kind of figured that it would happen eventually. So here we are. Cool. Um, let's see here. So yeah, Kevin McCarthy won the speakership just after midnight Saturday with 216 votes. To the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, 212. I wonder who the I wonder how many holdouts there still were actually. Um, but yeah, I guess he's gotten in there. I think that there were actually some concessions that were made. It was from the a lot of the holdouts were from the Freedom Caucus, just saying that they don't want to that they just wouldn't want to vote for him. So yeah, I guess I hope that they've got some decent concessions, I guess. But the machine will keep doing what the machine does. And I'm sure that I guess Congress, they're just gonna well, it's maybe the House will be able to prevent like the gross excesses of the Biden administration, but they're not going to be able to get much done. It's not like they can really pass any bills, but they can prevent bills from getting passed. So we're looking at government gridlock here, which is probably the best way for the government to operate. So yeah, I mean, there's that. I don't know. Now, of course, which number of votes was this? It's 15th. So it took him 15 times to finally get in, which is just a great vote of confidence for McCarthy. They had to do 15 rounds of voting, but he finally got in. It's kind of like the I guess it's a little bit like the European Union perspective on voting. You see, what you do is you allow the people to vote, and then if they come back with the answer that you want, then you move forward, and then if they come back with the answer that you don't want, then you ask them to vote again, and you just keep doing that until you get the appropriate answer for the democratic process. So I was on 4chan last night, and this came up, and so this guy says McCarthy won. I was sleeping. What happened? Yeah. So and then I decided to respond. No matter what they do, they're scrubbing the gears on a sinking machine. but I suppose I'm happy they got compromised and are working towards the potential of thinking about beginning the process of discussing the ramifications of deciding to start the process of initiating the idea of procuring the necessary resources to fund a committee that can then justify the commencement of doing the same shit they've always done. So this is good news, everyone. This is extremely good news.
Wow, that was very inspiring.
I know, right? Thank you.
And there seems to be like in the image, there seems to be two buildings.
Oh no, don't pay attention. That's a bad image. Don't pay attention to that image.
No, pay no attention to that image.
Let's see. Of course, NPR, in their infinite wisdom, they come back and they say, historic House Speaker showdown highlighted matters of race and representation. Oh boy, of course it did. Of course, all things at all times always highlight matters of race and representation. That's just how everything. Everything must always be about race and representation. Breaker, can you think of a single?
White people. You see, the reason why this is like white people aren't merely another race of people. White people are like these metaphysical titans that stomp around the earth, oppressing anyone and everything, down to the material atomic fucking level. Is white man's oppression is so strong and pervasive and super permeable throughout the very cosmos itself that any time where there is like some type of representation of non-white people, it is literally a miracle and deserves celebration. That's how powerful white people are. You don't understand this.
It's like we currently exist in hell, and hell is just nothing but white people, right? And it's just the demonic plane. But then occasionally, an angel falls from heaven and tries to rise up and fight back the demons, and that's like minority representation. It's kind of beautiful if you think about it.
And when you have to get to the level of like people, even like collectives of people or individual people are likened to these like supreme, divine, and diabolical forces. By the time you're at that point, I mean, how is this any different from a religion at this point? Can anyone tell me?
Oh, I can actually answer that. It's because it's not a religion, Breaker. It's a cult, okay? There's a major difference between the two.
I see. That would put a finer point on it, I suppose.
Of course, this article is from Juma Say, I guess. Let's look at him. Oh, he seems like a cool guy. I'm sure that
very diverse.
Yeah. He is a Sierra Leonean American from Portland, Oregon. Oh, and a graduate of Yale College. He's informed by a nomadic upbringing, blah, 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 between Sierra Leone, China. Oh, so he also spent some time in China. Hey, good for him.
China.
And I guess in Yale, he studied the socio-political elements of race and citizenship as an American studies major. Oh, look at that.
Very useful degree.
Yeah, yeah.
Many claps, golf claps all around.
Outside the classroom.
I'm sorry, it's like claps are triggering. We should do like jazz snaps or jazz hands. Just wave your hands in the air toward his general direction.
Outside the classroom, he was a first-year counselor and a mentor to black students in the New Haven area. So this guy seems like he's going to be completely unbiased and like a really chill dude. I do want to point out though that if I well, I won't go into it. I won't go into that. But I trust this guy. This guy seems like a cool guy. He definitely doesn't seem like someone who would support Marxism and BLM. He doesn't strike me as that type of dude. You know, like I mean, just looking at the dude, and his background, definitely, he's trustworthy. He's definitely center, definitely not like far left or anything. You can just tell.
I can't but wonder what he sounds like. I bet he has like the Portland, Oregon soy accent somehow, even though he's from frickin' Sierra Leone. Somehow he's picked up that frickin' accent.
He looks like he has that accent, is the thing. Yeah.
Time to learn about diversity, everyone. After I get done with my soy latte.
Wee! Yay! As protracted voting for Speaker of the House ground Congress to a standstill for multiple days this week, race and history permeated debate over who can best reflect the will of the American electorate on the Hill. Democrats and Republicans alike centered black lawmakers as officials discussed the importance of representation. Jesus fucking Christ. Look, here's the thing. We're trying to run a fucking country here, right? And in general, I don't care how pale or dark or whatever you are. If you help us stop giving Ukraine $1 trillion, then I will like you. And if you try to give Ukraine $1 trillion, I'm not going to like you. Why is it that we always have to focus on the elements that have the least amount to do with how to run a country? Oh boy, is your representative, is he this particular race? It doesn't matter what they think. In fact, it's better if they just think it's better if they don't think. Just follow the party line. Just do what the fucking machine tells you. But don't worry, we have diversity, so everything's going swimmingly. Don't worry, this is a very representative Congress, and they have your interests in mind, because they're diverse, and so they're thinking for themselves. Definitely, they're not just being told what to do by the fucking machine.
Exactly.
In speeches on the floor throughout the week, Democrats, for whom black voters are a core part of the party's base, highlighted the historic significance of New York Representative Hakeem Jeffries as the first black person to lead a congressional caucus. Great. This is pandering. Do we all understand what the fuck pandering is? This is called pandering, okay? These are all politicians, all right? They don't care about you. The government is not your friend. They don't care about you. Just about none of them do. Maybe like I would say like maybe there's like 5, maybe like 10. Maybe I should be more generous. There's like 10 politicians maybe that exist within Congress that appear to have any sort of moral fiber. But otherwise they're fucking politicians. They're and it doesn't matter if you share the same skin color as them. It just doesn't. For instance, right? Check this out. I am a white guy. Nancy Pelosi.
Why?
It's true. Nancy Pelosi is also a white woman. And you know who's even whiter than that? Elizabeth Warren, aggressively white. When she's not chilling inside a teepee on the weekends, she's aggressively white.
Well, don't worry about that. Like recently, she went on like a vacation to like a tropical area. And she forgot to bring her like mosquito repellent.
Oh.
So all the mosquitoes landed on her, and they sucked out like all the Native American blood. So there's none left in there. That's all it took, really. It's surprising. It's just that tiny amount. That's all it took.
Just a couple mosquito bites. Oh, damn, that's brutal.
Yeah, it's all gone. Nothing to do about it.
But Elizabeth Warren and Nancy Pelosi, they're both white. They share my skin color. But that doesn't mean that I like them. That doesn't mean that I want them in office. I want these people gone. But you know what? For whatever reason, the left is allowed to go into race-based politics. Of course, it's complete. It's on the front face of NPR. Of course, yeah, of course.
You remember when Black Lives Matter miraculously cured COVID for like 6 or 7 months?
I do remember that. Yeah. You're not allowed to go outside. You're not allowed to be around people because that would be problematic. But actually, if anything, protesting for BLM actually decreases your risk of getting COVID while you're outside.
Especially while gathered around a bunch of people with no mask on. That's like something about black people gathering for a cause, especially BLM, but most like leftist causes in general, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, while not wearing a mask, like miraculously cures the disease.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that most of the members at a BLM protest are going to be white. I do want to point that out.
Well, yeah, now I have to qualify. This is not medical advice. Like, we're not an expert. We trust Fauci here because Fauci is the science.
Yes. So, anyway, I don't know. This is just some fucking stupid NPR article. I mean, there's so many stupid fucking NPR articles.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. But I mean, great. I just here's the thing, right? If you were to take this article and then replace all of the times when it says black with white, it would be quite racist. Democrats and Republicans alike centered white lawmakers as officials discussed the importance of white representation.
Why?
In speeches on the floor throughout the week, Democrats, for whom white voters are a core part of the party's base, which is extremely true,
Why?
Highlighted the historic significance of Representative McCarthy as a white person to lead the congressional caucus.
Why?
It doesn't.
Now this starting to sound. What is this? A fucking David Duke rally? And I never heard such vile racism in all my life.
Yeah. I love NPR so much.
It's like David Duke, Jared Taylor, and what's that other guy's name? Richard Spencer. They all like got together and they took a massive crap on me, and now I'm like covered in your vile, putrid, like feculent white supremacy all over my body, like a massive scat bukkake. How dare you?
I wonder if we could find some cool stuff on NPR just real quick, like news, race. What about the race section? It's got to be good.
This could not possibly go wrong.
Yeah. No, it's NPR. It's very clean. Okay. Yeah, this is just why some Republicans want to narrow who counts as black. Oh. Notes from America. Blackness uninterrupted. Man, just all about different articles that are just entirely based off of.
Wait a minute, how are pumpkins racist?
Well, I guess that we could take a quick gander. Let's see what the argument is.
I want to see those racist pumpkins. Something about those pumpkins.
Oh, it's a video. Republican officials in Louisiana want to change how black people are counted in voting maps. If their plan is successful, it could shrink the power of black voters across the country and further gut the Voting Rights Act. But how? I'm not gonna listen to this. It's fucking 36 minutes.
It's like a PragerU video, but for stupid people.
But
stupider people.
But how? Okay, let's. What? But how? Right? How black people? I mean, officially, right? Like.
Well, it's just like how black people cannot find the DMV. I don't know. I guess the DMV is so fucking like pungently pregnant with white supremacy that it erects like a magical ward that makes the DMV invisible to black people so they can't get voter IDs. I don't know how any of this fucking works. You tell me.
Yeah, I don't know, because how would it shrink the power of black voters across the country? I mean, are they suggesting that like on election day you go to the poll and before they ask you who you want to vote for, they ask your race first, and they go, hello sir, what race do you identify as? Because of course there are Rachel Dolezals that I self-identify as different races.
Time I went to vote in person. I'll tell you exactly what happened. It was just a lady there with no computers or scanning devices. It was just a person with a clipboard that was writing down names. So I could have literally went in there with a name of someone that lives in the town, most of which of these names I know. And I had like a decent chance that this person either isn't voting or hasn't voted yet. And I can just use any name I fucking want. And They didn't ask me for any identification whatsoever, so that's just something that I'm not advocating that anyone commit voter fraud, but that's theoretically how easy it would have been for me to just say I was anybody.
Yeah, I had the same experience in the midterms. They were like, hey, what's your name and your address? Okay, go on in. Do you know how easy it is
I
to
don't even
know
think they
someone's...
asked me my address.
I mean, that's fucking.
It was just names.
That's just crazy. But do you know how easy it is to get someone's name and address? Like, that's a highly exploitable system. I could go in there. I could like let's say that I was a member of a big family, right? I could go in there and I could vote for every single one of my brothers. Just go in there, vote for myself, step back, get back in line. 30 minutes later, no, I'm my brother's name. I'm voting for him now. Okay, sir. Yeah, go on in. It's like,
you know what they did in Iraq back when they had like the fucking Bush years debacle. It's like bring democracy to Iraq and Iran. Like what the fuck ever. You know what they did over there? They literally had you like dip your hand, like your whole thumb, into a blue inkwell, and this was like really difficult to remove ink that stuck on your hand for like days. And every time you voted, you had to dip your thumb in that blue ink that was like blatantly obvious. There's zero ambiguity. Like you have a big blue thumb, so that they would know if people had or hadn't voted that day. It's like, okay, show me your thumb. And if your thumb wasn't blue, you got to vote. And that was actually more effective than this.
Secure. That's like
Yeah.
way more secure than our modern day elections. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't in terms of what they're saying. I mean, I haven't listened to their fucking 36-minute spiel about bullshit, but like, I don't know how that would reduce the power of black voters across the country. That makes no sense. Maybe there's some sort of logical argument behind this, but just how like, are you saying that like if Louisiana, I don't know, alters its census or whatever, because the U.S. does a census, they ask you like, how many people are in your household do identify as black, Latino, non-Latino, white, or whatever? Are you are you Chinese, whatever? Okay, so maybe they alter their census a bit. Is this arguing that then in Texas, like, I don't know, that it's gonna limit the ability of black people to vote maybe this little blurb down here is like misleading, but in that case, fucking change it to make more sense, because this shit doesn't make any sense, NPR. Like, I keep going back to your fucking news site, and I keep seeing nothing but drivel, and god damn it, NPR.
Well, the only thing this would do to give them the slightest of bones. Okay, one thing this could do, now that you're going to realize immediately how racist this actually is. The one thing that would do is if you were going out and they gerrymandered your district, but you didn't know. So if you went to like your polling place, let's say hypothetically for Tom's district, I don't know if that's a district, just a random name. There's Tom's district and Dave's district. And those districts in the last election have been redrawn. And it just so happens that you used to be in Dave's district, but now you're in Tom's district. So you go to Dave district's voting place, and you're like, oh, you can't vote here. This is Dave's district. You need to go to Tom's district. And if you're like a big town where you have to stay in line all day to vote, that'd be like, fuck, now I have to drive all the way across town and go in another line? Fuck it. That would be about it. That would be assuming that you didn't know that district changed, which if you actually cared about voting, you would. But you see how highly these people actually think of black people. They default assume that black people are so fucking stupid that they're not going to realize that their district changed. They need to go to the other school to vote now that they didn't go to last time they voted.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some influence of gerrymandering, but I don't see how that would affect a black person in another state, right? Even if Louisiana just gerrymanders the fuck out of their state, how does that affect other states? It doesn't. I don't know. Based on the blurb, it doesn't make any sense. But I think you're correct, Breaker. In all my many years on this world, I've never met a black man with a driver's license. I've never actually witnessed a black person driving a car. It's not a thing. So how could they possibly get fucking voter IDs? It's not possible.
I know that's even stranger. Like all the black truck drivers I meet, I guess there's like a massive epidemic of black people driving these highly complicated vehicles with no license whatsoever. It's kind of scary, isn't it? I guess.
getting paid for it with lots of fucking government bureaucracy all over it, but nope, they're driving without a license.
And fucking logbooks that the Department of Transportation looks at like a fucking hawk. It's like, yeah, they're just all doing it. No one cares, I guess.
Oh, Breaker, I guess you don't know about this special federal law that says that black people they're allowed to operate motor vehicles without a license. You know, it's a thing. Surprised you don't know about that.
I guess that goes to like that sovereign citizenship thing I hear a lot of people on the internet, you know. From what I hear, that sounds like a totally legitimate position that won't get you thrown in jail or piss off a judge very badly.
So let's see what NPR has on science.
Science. Let me guess. Scientist finds a stupendous, spectacular new thing. You won't believe what it is. And then you read down 3 paragraphs, and it's like an actual scientist says what the thing is, and it's like something you already know and potentially known for years. Like, this isn't even fucking news. Fuck you.
So, I guess that we're facing as NPR says, a triple demic. Oh my God! It's not just a pandemic anymore. It's a triple demic.
That doesn't even make sense because pan is above triple because pan is like multiplicitous that's undefined by a discrete number. Making it a triple actually makes it better, not worse. It's only 3 demics. It's not a panopticon of dimitude. It's only 3 of them. You can count them. 1, 2, 3 demics. That's it. That's actually a much less severe problem.
Let me just see here real quick. Okay. Right. So, I guess that we have, in this triple demic, we have the respiratory synaptical virus infection, RSV infection, which is,
how you know it's bullshit when they just make up words and they don't even realize what the root word means, and they just like, let's make it sound scarier by adding like a ×3 modifier. That makes sense. No, it doesn't, you fucking idiot.
Okay, so basically, it's a common respiratory virus that usually causes mild cold-like symptoms. Okay.
Oh no! Oh, anything but that.
And then you have this year's flu. And then I guess the latest what are we fucking COVID Zeta 1911 at this point? Like, I don't know, whatever fucking version of COVID we have.
You know what's actually making the cold worse? It's the fact that people were inside their houses for practically a whole fucking year and they weren't actually exercising their immune systems. So like the normal cold was still around.
Right.
And now that it hits, it's like a sledgehammer because you haven't been exposed to the environment and fighting off the virus.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you fight off these cold viruses all the time. Like, it takes a certain amount of viral load and, like, immunocompromised state to even come down with the cold. The cold could be on you or in your nose, but your immune system just stops it at the source a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah. Their immune system hasn't been lifting, bro, for like a couple of years, and then when you go
now
outside,
it's the Chad virus versus the virgin immune system.
That's right. Yeah, it used to be like a pretty even arm wrestling match where it was 2 Chads just arm wrestling all the time. But now everyone stopped lifting, bro, and wow, oh my God, now you're more susceptible to the fucking cold and the flu. Who would have guessed that? Because we fucking locked down for 2 years. Yeah, fucking brilliant shit. Yeah, no one was saying, like, there definitely wasn't anyone saying that there would be serious ramifications for, locking down, but hey, you know what? If it only saved
I wasn't even locked down. I was like an essential worker. So I was still getting like normal colds and flus and the actual granddaddy viruses at the same time. So like there was no change for me because I was still in the shit.
Anyway, this use of triple demic is that's absolutely preposterous. Like this is not a triple demic. What the fuck? It's a you got
yeah, triple demic doesn't even make linguistic sense. Like pan is more than triple.
I mean, yeah, but also it's just like it's the flu, and it's the common cold essentially, and then you also got whatever fucking variant of COVID. Okay, great, but have we ever called have we ever said in the past, oh wow, there's a cold going around? It's a pandemic.
The only one I remember is the Spanish flu.
I mean,
that was a long time ago, though.
That was. I'm surprised that you remember that. You're older than I thought, but yeah.
Well, in the history books, you know, I know some things.
So, yeah, this is that's just silly. This is it's a fucking triple.
There was also swine flu and the bird flu and remember mad cow disease. You got to stop eating beef because you'll go crazy. I think that was just subsidized eco-greeny insanity. I don't even think was mad cow disease even real. As a biologist, do you know what that really was, if anything?
Well, oh no, dude. Mad cow disease is real. Just like Israel is real. And no, they both exist. It's actually it's a prion disease. That's what causes mad cow disease, and it can infect humans. And if you do get infected, it is a death sentence. It may take 5 years, it may take 30 years, but you will die guaranteed.
So that actually was pretty serious.
Yeah, best not to expose your population to that. I mean, that is one of the few times where it would be better to be a vegan.
Well, I guess then the FDA changed the food and safety regulations and cranked down more, so it kind of just, that's kind of like trichinosis. Does any Western modern person that eats factory pork ever get trichinosis anymore? Is that even a thing in the Western world at all?
I don't think it's that common. Oh, okay. So I didn't know this off the top of my head, but apparently the new variant of COVID is XBB.1.5. Just in case anyone was curious, that is
COVID. Now I'm just waiting for COVID THX 1138 when we get the cool silver-faced robots.
I think the next one should be named after a graphics card,
they got to the point where they just
fucking 1700 or where we're at right now.
It's graphics cards, computer components, and Ibanez guitars. One person will get that joke. It's just a bunch of alphabet soup of numbers and letters and general symbols. Well, that is good news because that kind of lets you know that they're trying to sweep this under the rug, and they're eventually going to make it so mimetically verbose and ridiculous. It's this is viral component 2239 beta gamma 2 ACP 120, and it's eventually going to get to this ridiculous string of shit where no one's going to remember it, and then most people are just going to conveniently forget, and they'll be like, "Whew, got rid of that."
So. NPR, they go on to say that they ask why the Omicron subvariant XBB.1.5 is spreading so fast. The prevalence of XBB.1.5 shot up like a rocket. Who has been tracking new variants? This variant has displaced other variants in a way that we've never seen before. That's kind of alarming. Okay, all right, hold on. The good news is that so far there's no evidence that the new variant makes people sicker than earlier versions of the coronavirus. Oh. Okay, so what you're saying, and hold on, I want to get this straight, because I'm pretty sure that I was saying shit like this like when this whole fucking thing started. We weren't doing the Promethean ties at that point, but I was shouting about this on Discord. I was saying that, hey, here's a thing that we know about viruses. They tend to mutate, to become more spreadable, but less deadly, right? And that's just a general trend in viruses, because from an evolutionary perspective, that's what they want. They don't want to kill the host. They just want to spread as much as possible. They have no interest in killing the host. In fact, that oftentimes hurts them. So they don't want to kill the host if they don't have to. So, of course, this is the direction that COVID would go. And oh, wow, look at that. It keeps heading in that direction. Oh, it's becoming less and less deadly and more spreadable. Wow. Well, yeah, who would have fucking predicted that? Yeah, it was so surprising. Now, it says down here, XBB.1.5 has gotten a specific mutation that enables it to maintain antibody escape properties while also giving it an advantage for spreading through the population. That means lots of people are probably going to get COVID-19 this winter. Okay? Here's the thing. I thought that like 60% of our population was vaccinated. And the vaccines are highly safe and effective. So I'm assuming that the people that got vaccinated they're not going to get the COVID, right? Like that would make sense because they got vaccinated. And the way that, like, if you get a polio vaccine, it prevents you from getting polio. If you get a chickenpox vaccine, it prevents you from getting chickenpox. If you get the flu vaccine, in theory, it's supposed to prevent you from getting the flu. So I assume that this incredibly safe and effective vaccine that is based off of just the best and most reliable science using an mRNA vector. I'm sure that it's only the 40% of people that didn't get the vaccine that will get sick. So this isn't going to be so bad, right? So I did want to bring this up.
Well, wait a minute, didn't the virus mutate to where the old vaccine doesn't even do anything anymore?
I don't. No, no. The I'm pretty sure the vaccine is still extremely safe and extremely effective. But
yeah, let's go with that. Fuck it, the science after all.
I found this on the 4chans. So this is from the World Health Organization. There, and so
wait a minute.
So we have an interesting thing here. So from the 9th of June 2020, this is a couple of years ago, right? But from the 9th of June 2020, what is herd immunity? Herd immunity is the indirect protection from an infectious disease that happens when a population is immune either through vaccination or immunity developed through previous infection. Okay, so then, I guess like 5 or 6 months later, 5 months later, what is herd immunity? Herd immunity, also known as population immunity, is a concept used for vaccination. Wait a minute, but you just said that it could be through previous infection. No, it's only through vaccination, in which a population can be protected from a certain virus if a threshold of exclusively vaccination is reached. Herd immunity is achieved by protecting people from a virus, not by exposing them to it. I love you so much, government. You're the best. You're just the best at everything that you do, and you're amazing, and you definitely never lie to me, and you're my friend, and I trust you implicitly.
You see, this is why morality isn't rational. Because, you know, if there's like an absolute foundation, it's like you can change all of these words and like ideograms and symbols around the fucking thing to whatever you want, literally. But at the end of the day, there's still a there behind all of this that, for better or for worse, may or may not be entirely accurately captured by the terminologies that seem to very rapidly shift over the course of mere months these days.
See, actually, I respect everything about this, right? Because look, if your argument doesn't make sense, if what you're saying doesn't make sense, if what you're doing doesn't seem to match or conform to the reality of the world around you, it's simple, right? Don't try to like change your argument or, you know, debate someone or refine your position or even change what you're doing. What you do is you just say, nuh-uh, I have altered the definition of that word to mean something else, so now I'm correct. It's kind of like what the what the Biden administration tried to do with inflation, right? It's like no, we're not, or not. It was the recession, right? No, we're not in a recession because actually we have updated the definition of recession. So don't worry, we are now no longer in a recession. Pats on the back for all of us, because it's that simple, right? If you just change the definition of the word, then now you're correct. And the most, you know what? It means you're technically correct, and that's the best type of correct.
Well, isn't that wonderful?
Okay, so I
I'm the mighty Saw God.
so both Breaker and myself watched this, and I found this to be just absolutely just a fantastic argument to listen to. And actually, before the show, Breaker and I we're talking a little bit about this conversation and some of the ideas related to it. So we might kind of go into this a little bit. I would recommend that it's only an hour long. It goes by real quick because it is such like an interesting argument. Very very engaging.
They're both like red hot.
Yeah, they're both big brain. I know some people might not think that Sargon is big brain. But I think actually Sargon is pretty big brain is the thing. That's just my.
He didn't used to be. There were times in history where you could like criticize him a bit more, but over time he's kind of refined quite a bit over the past several years.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like he used to, like when he first started out, it was just like basic like Gamergate. Like I don't like feminism, which I mean.
Feminism. Feminism is ridiculous.
Yeah, but as time has gone on, I think that he's really reformed his positions, and I think that he has a very based take on a lot of things, and I find myself unable to disagree with most of what he says, which I can't say the same thing about Peter Boghossian. He's a smart dude as well. I think that different worldviews on like a fundamental level. But we won't go through the whole video. I just wanted to maybe like start at like maybe like 39:30, I think it was.
So hope you remember your timestamps.
I hope I got this right.
I think they are human-centric. That's the thing. And I think that really Rawls's original position, and like I said, it's concealing that. Not I don't want to say smuggling, because that implies a deliberate intent to deceive, right? I don't think that's what he's doing on purpose. I think it's just and this is genuinely the problem with the Enlightenment itself. It tries to set itself up in a position of objectivity, and it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? That means a position from the perspective of the universe, but there's nothing value laden that we can derive from the perspective of the universe. The universe is indifferent, as far as we can tell, to the existence of humans or not. And so it's like, right, okay, why are we even doing that? And so the next question then is it unreasonable for me to start from the perspective of a human being? And as I am a human being, I come to the conclusion that it's not unreasonable for me to start there, actually. And actually, it seems unreasonable to try and judge the world from the perspective of the universe. Like that actually, if you think, it's actually totally backwards, and it totally makes no sense. And it means that you end up in these extreme hypotheticals like Rawls here, where, I mean, okay, let's assume it's actually a watertight thought experiment.
Okay.
It means that we adopt a position from which the entire universe will.
Just to the Rawls position is it's like this it's this concept, just to explain it, because we skipped ahead a little bit in the conversation, but for anyone that doesn't know, it's like if you didn't know where you were going to be born at all, then what type of world would you want to exist so that you would have the best odds of living a decent life? So it's like, okay, like I may respond that, okay, well, yeah, I don't want a civilization that has like a 90% rate of slavery in it, because then if I were to be randomly born into that system, then there's a 90% chance that I would be a slave. So ergo, that is
Of course, knowing what you know now, but starting from a position of zero, how would you even be able to formulate that thought at all?
Right. I mean, the thing is that also like, knowing what I currently know, it's like, okay, I would actually rather be in like, I don't know, like probably in a system that is not quite America, like maybe like an America, but like we have like lots and lots of states' rights, and it's like more of like a very weakened federal government, and you more power to the states, and more of a minarchy, fucking libertarian utopia, not anarcho-capitalism. I'm not that extreme, but you know, like something like
you mean
that.
Like pre-Civil War America?
Basically. Yeah, basically. You know, when America was good, you know, before it sold out, when it used to be punk rock, that America. Whereas, if I don't know, if you were to ask communists, they'd be like, oh yeah, China seems good. So like, it's not even possible to actually really get anyone to agree on what type of world they would want to like live in. Like, yeah, okay, maybe we can agree that like no one would want to be born into a system where there's 90% slavery, but I mean, also maybe there's a couple people out there that would like that, and that's ultimately that. Well, I'll let Sargon explain that, but I would say.
First, let me ask you the question: if you were born into slavery, from that position, would you be able to even conceive of a world where your master wasn't telling you what to do? It's like, how would you even have a conception of knowing how to live self-sufficiently if you never had in your entire life? How the world that a born slave would think of would be radically different than the worlds that you or I would think of.
Potentially, but I do think that a slave can imagine freedom, even if he's not educated and he was born into the system and blah blah blah. All he's ever known is someone telling him what to do. I think that he could still imagine the concept of freedom, because I think that, I don't know, the concept of freedom is kind of innate to a human, because that's his state of nature, is basically more or less freedom, and it's an aberration on the state of nature to not be free. So I think perhaps there's just something deep within human psychology that just innately, biologically desires freedom. I guess, I don't know, but
here we go.
Yeah.
Will forever be judged as wrong, because we will never begin in that position. We will never be able to format the universe from that starting point. And so everything in the universe is now wrong because of that thought experiment. And it's like, no, I reject this way of thinking of things. Like we are definitely, like, it's very clever, but it's also weird and anti-human. You know, we need to start in a much more small and local fleshy body and just be like okay, what
Okay.
is right and wrong from this perspective, and then we get much more, I think, small changes that are needed to be made. Like, we can look directly at like unjust human suffering and say, right, that's, you know, for example, like you can,
But that's timeless. Hold on a second. If you look at unjust,
Okay, so there was there was, I think, basically one of the one of the most essential arguments that Sargon puts forward during this discussion, and I loved how he put that out. It's like, look, we're humans. Why are we trying to make a universal claim from the perspective of the universe when we are not the universe? We are fleshy humans. All of this ideology, all of this like thinking and rationalization and thinking that we can come to the truth purely through from first principles, that's absurd. We are but humans. We are imperfect. We do not have the minds of God. We have the minds of men. And so what else can we do but consider things as a human? I think that's I mean, that's Sargon is coming at it from like kind of a different direction, but I've been saying this for like a while. Like, this appears to be like how shit actually works, and the rest of it's, I don't know, a weird form of schizophrenia and autism.
Yeah, like we were talking before the show, as Sargon puts it, that fleshy human perspective. Now, let's say that in some like hyper abstract way, you could actually derive like logogram, semantically concise symbols that represent like moral absolutes. Even if you could refine it that much, you would actually end up shooting yourself in the foot because of Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Because eventually all those logograms would be comprised into sets, and we all know what happens. Does the set of all sets contain itself? No, not really. And you might say it's like, oh, well, long before we ever get to that point, like pragmatically speaking, we could just be in this marginal in between. But that's exactly what Sargon's saying, that marginality, in betweenness, and incompleteness, from that perspective at least, is actually closer to how humans as moral agents actually operate in the real world. We don't operate with like absolute, axiomatically exact, discrete logograms. That's not how humans work.
Yeah, no, it's not, and I think it might be worthwhile going into that a little bit. So I like the idea that's put forward that so the systems that we currently have, like we have here in the West, we have our beautiful democratic republic, our constitutional republic system, and it's wonderful and it's amazing, and it was kind of formed off of the back of the British like system of doing things, like the Magna Carta, which itself is like this very ancient system that was actually based off of some other like concepts, like, you know, coming from like things like Christianity and stuff like that, and, you know, philosophers way back when, and like there's this deep history and of how it is that you actually run a civilization, and well, I mean, how do you do it? Well, no one knows how to correctly run a civilization, and there's probably not a perfect way to run a civilization. I would argue that almost certainly does not exist. But over time, systems have evolved that become better and better at running a civilization stably and with economic prosperity that does the best for not only the nation, but the people that live within it. And it's been a long slog, and there's been lots of mistakes that have been made, of course, but it's an ever-evolving system that actually doesn't make any sense. It is not rational. It is not formulatable through just purely ideas and logic and reason and math. It's an evolutionary complex system itself. And then what we as humans do, because we have to do this, we love doing this, is we do post hoc rationalization, right? And we say, oh, well, this is why the system worked out. It's because of these things, and it was entirely predictable from the beginning that this would have been the best system. But, you know, now with hindsight, we can show that, of course, it was always going to be the best system. We do that, but that's actually absurd. The systems that work grow naturally. They're not formed out of whole cloth from the minds of men. They grow naturally. And by the way, when it comes to like America, yes, it was kind of like a constructed system, but also it kind of wasn't, because number one, the ideas that they were working with were ideas that had been evolved themselves. They were just copying basically shit that seemed to have worked throughout the years, right? And then they structured it in such a way that it could also more or less be dynamic and actually change over time. And so it has been allowed to evolve. At this point, I think it's evolved in the direction of corruption, and maybe there needs to be. I think there actually is a counter force that is pushing against that, and we're seeing it right now. And I hope that that continues to do its thing. I suspect it will, because whatever the system is right now, I don't think that it's actually. It's evolutionarily stable, so it must be replaced. Otherwise, it can't maintain its position in the world. In the same way that if a species just overall becomes weak and it's resting on its laurels too much, then it tends to be made to go extinct by nature. It's just the way of the world. Thank you, entropy, for that one. But yeah, this is the perspective of that Sargon has been trying to put out in this conversation, in addition to some of his claims about fuck you objective morality. And I just think that he is so based on everything that he says in this interview. I recommend everyone go watch this in its entirety. It's quite a gem, I think.
Yeah, you probably should. As I was talking about that, it kind of reminds me of the differences between Eastern and Western language, and especially the writing systems. In like Chinese, you basically have ideograms, where you have this symbol that means, I don't know, fire, earth, water, wind, and various other things. But it's captured in this like Platonic symbol in this ideogram. And the actual sounds that come out of your mouth to describe that, and this is why like scholars of like Eastern languages and like Chinese and the Asian languages especially kind of have a hard time figuring out, it's like, how did people actually sound like 2,000 years ago, because you have these same symbols and there's no like phonetic component, it's just pure ideograms. So they have to do like a whole bunch of clever tricks to figure out what actual ancient Chinese, for example, sounded like. Whereas in the Western world, you have phonograms like A, B, C, A, B, K. They're actually tied to the empirical sound that comes out of your mouth. It's much more Aristotelian in that sense.
Huh. Actually, I haven't thought about that before, but that's a good point. Yeah, the ideograms, like, I don't know. I haven't thought about that whatsoever, but in my gut, I feel like the ideograms are more Platonic and the phonograms are more Aristotelian.
Yeah, because the phonogram is just like, hey, I made the sound eh. What should I do with that sound? Well, write it as this A, and A goes eh, and A will be the eh sound.
Right. It's not an entire concept written down in this. In this very clunky way of writing shit down. I mean, dude, fundamentally, like, if you have limited space, you can write more with the Chinese ideograms. Like, if you only have like just a tiny little space, you can contain more information within that. But Jesus Christ, it's clunky to have a different symbol for every word concept.
See, like the Western world. That's why if you see like a sentence in like proper Japanese, the way they actually spell things, and then you see that same sentence translated in English, it takes up like 2 paragraphs, where like it's just like it looks like one sentence in Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, if you have limited space, it's more efficient, but geez, I mean, it just seems like a very clunky system. I would hate to have to learn Chinese, especially the writing system. It seems like just a massive pain in the ass. But
And then there's also things in the Eastern world you could notice, because Japanese kind of like mixes between phonograms and ideograms.
Yeah, I know that,
depending on the context for like their punctuation. And Korean is even more interesting, because they used to use like the Chinese ideograms. And roughly 1,000 years ago, I think, there was this one Korean king that created intentionally. Yeah, he was the Emperor of Korea. He intentionally created the system of writing that they still use now, which is explicitly, in a very abstract and Aristotelian way, explicitly phonetic, to where the characters in Korean, if you ever look at Korean, they're literally sounds that you make with your mouth.
Well, I mean, I don't know much about this. I mean, shit, like this would be something that I think probably someone like Thinking Ape would know a lot more about. But I looked into this a bit, and it's like it was a very top down, like it was just instituted by the emperor.
Yeah, it's like really explicit, and it's extremely clean.
Yeah, it's almost mathematical, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
and then you look at English, like English, the sounds that come out of our mouth have actually changed, but the fucking phonemes didn't. That's why there's silent K in knife and night. They used to be knife and knit, but we dropped the K, but the letters stayed because of the fucking historicity of the spelling. And now so much of English makes little to no fucking sense, and you just have to know all these extra things, so it reconverges into this weird quasi-Platonic form where you just have see like, oh, there's a K in this word, but it's preceded by this. That means that K doesn't make a sound.
Look,
why don't you just not write a K? God damn it!
No. But look. No, actually, I think that is, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, maybe that's a good thing about English, because, like, the thing is that English is very much not top down. English is very much bottom up, and you can tell because, like, we're constantly adopting new words into our vocabulary. Um, like I think that the English language has more words in it than any other language on Earth, because we
Yeah,
just
and by the way, we actually got our alphabet from the Romans. And if you remember, ancient Latin is an extremely Aristotelian, very mathematically precise, where the way you say something, and if you're accusing someone or saying something as a matter of fact or opinion, the actual words you use change a lot. Like, Latin is extremely complicated compared to English, and English didn't used to have those letters. It had the fucking runes. And the runes are more like ideograms, where they're like the river, the forest. That's what the fucking runes are.
yeah, I feel like it would actually be, I don't know, maybe we can get into this, but I feel like it would actually be like if something was created as like from the top down, like the Korean language, I would say that that is actually more Platonic than Aristotelian, because it came from like the mind of a man, whereas if something naturally grew from just the evolutionary process, that would be less Platonic and more Aristotelian.
Well, okay, here's the difference. Like, all of our languages naturally grow bottom up, because that's how language comes to be. It's an evolutionary process. That's fundamentally how we have now, in an abstract sense, like the external mimetic abstraction and how you write and deal with that language external to actual personified agents like you and I are doing now, speaking the language. External to that, like, you would have to come up with, like, either it's going to be a bottom up or a top down system, and how will I parse this out? Like the Eastern, like the Chinese actually took the freaking top down Platonic system. It's like, what is like the true essence of the fire, the water, the wind, and they wrote that. And the actual sounds coming out of their mouths empirically were less important when they abstracted it into written language.
Well, okay, so I want to say this. I think that there is a lot of idiosyncrasies in English, a lot of shit that just it doesn't make sense, right? But to some extent, it actually kind of makes understanding the language a little bit easier if you know enough about it, right? So, for instance, based off of the way that a word is spelled, or like even if we're not even dealing with writing, based off of just the way that the word is said, you can tell kind of its origin, right? Like you can kind of look at a word and you can be like, okay, the origin of that word is probably French, like resume,
like resume,
right?
Yeah,
Obviously that's French. Whereas like biology, that's clearly a Latin word. Life study. So
and then you get like weird things like names like Glatfelter. That sounds like something Nordic, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. Or I don't know of any imported German words, but like Schadenfreude or whatever it is.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, that's clearly German. So it's like there's actually like the word has been adopted, but also at least some of the context still remains. Like, you can still be like, okay, yeah.
And there's a conceptual content in these words in different European languages that don't actually directly translate. Like Schadenfreude, for example, you have to say like this whole sentence, like taking pleasure in the misfortune of others. You have to say this whole thing, but in German, that's encapsulated in a single word.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. I think that to some extent, like it's a weakness that this process has created such like a bizarre language. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of strengths to it. Number one, like the words that we import, they're not entirely bastardized. You can tell where it came from. They maintain a lot of their original character. And also, I think that I mean, this makes this. I think maybe this process. I mean, there's other reasons for it, obviously, but maybe part of the reason why it is that English is basically the international language. The one thing that like it's the thing that business is done through. Like, it's the one thing that everyone's expected to learn, so that like on the international level you can communicate with anyone else, is this kind of essential strength of English. It's actually it's very good at just working with all other languages, and it's not a bug, it's a feature, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Here's like a really good example that kind of goes into this Sargon versus Peter Boghossian type of dialectic. I know the concept, if you watch this video, the concept of like slavery will come up. And Boghossian seems to think that it is empirically, like naturally, rationally, empirically, derivably obvious that humans do not want to be slaves.
Right.
Now, you might look at that superficially and think that makes sense to you, like especially you particularly because you're the libertarian. Ideologically, that makes perfect sense to you. Like the natural state of man is a state of liberty. It's like, yeah, but also think about there was an old comedian I remember, like before the whole Donald Trump debacle happened, before the dark times of comedy. There was a comedian talking about like Donald Trump is like the personification of a person that a homeless beggar envisions a rich person to be. It's like if you see like a homeless man on the street and he's like, when my number comes in and I win the lottery, I'm going to build a giant building with my name on the side in gold letters. Like Donald Trump is this a hyperbolic, absurd, over-the-top caricature that seems like it's something that would come from the mind of someone in a position that's practically akin to slavery. So don't think so easily that, well, you could say like a Russian serf. They would like imagine what not being a serf would be like. But their imagined version of that would be this larger than life, ridiculous, hyperbolic example, and it wouldn't be even thing remotely resembling true liberty.
Right. Yeah, it seems like
It would be hyper idealized and Platonic and reaching for the stars. It wouldn't be grounded in reality because that is not their actual basis of that they ground things in reality by.
I mean, also like why is it that it seems a little bit anthropocentric that we would claim that whatever the human perspective is the universal perspective. Because like
exactly, and that's what Sargon gets at.
Like if you think about it, human beings are made of cells, and the thing about the cells in your body is that overall they are in a state of slavery, and this is actually good for the organism. And it's only when these cells obtain freedom that you actually get cancer, and then that kills everything. So,
well, here's an even better example. It's like, to bring it down to biology, it's like, what if we could talk to genes? And what would a human gene, if gene were like a whole agentic human, what would its version of that idealized human be? It would probably say something like, I'm going to like conquer the entire world, and then I'm going to go to outer space, and I'm going to like dig into the ground and like suck black stuff out of the ground and burn it, and it's going to power the entire world. And from that perspective, it would seem like this ridiculous, over-the-top, hyperbolic thing. But when you stop to think about that, is it that kind of consistent with reality in like an aggregate sense? But from the single gene's perspective, you would look at the gene and be like, you're fucking crazy, you're just a gene.
Yeah, and so I did we were having this discussion. I think that you can explain this concept a lot better, but I did want to actually like, I don't know, I'll let you do it, but kind of a deeper dive into the like the Gödel's incompleteness theorem thing, and why it is that it shows that it's not really possible to derive objective morality from like purely just first principles of concepts of rationality.
Okay, let's try to go about it somewhat Socratically. It's like, okay, you're setting out on this goal to like have, like Peter Boghossian says, like there should be a rational empirical basis for things like anti-slavery and the concept of justice. Like these should be, like he's about to say in this clip here, these should be like eternal things that are derived from the very nature of the universe itself in this absolute idealized way. Now you take that concept, it's like, okay, if what you're saying is true and this is like so absolute, you should eventually be able to boil this all the way down into like a pure logogram, where it's like this state of being is discrete and distinct from the states of being surrounding it, just like you can do with mathematical symbols. Like
when you're
1
saying
is not equal to 2.
When you're saying a logogram, essentially what you're saying is a
Like the number 1.
It's a concept that you could theoretically write down in the form of a sentence. No matter how long that sentence is, you could theoretically write it down, basically.
Yeah, if you wanted to write the number 1 down and fully define number 1, it's not as easy. Like, we take a lot for granted, like implicitly when writing down numbers. And Gödel, that's why he went to such pain in the ass lengths to write these things down as extremely exactly as possible. It's like, you don't merely write the number 1. Like, number 1, if you write it down, it's like, I have 1 of this thing. Like, you see, you're applying it to like an external value judgment, like 1 what. Well, no, we're not talking about 1 what from your human perspective. We're talking about what is 1 fundamentally. So in order to do that, you have to do this like convergence of prime numbers, and you have to define all the things that are not and cannot be 1 ever. And it's like, what is 1 not equal to, and what is 1 equal to? And you have to do all of these things step by step by step to finally write like, it takes 300 pages in the Principia Mathematica to define 1, and then another 400 pages to define 1 plus 1 equals 2 is true. It takes 700 pages of the Principia Mathematica to fully define what 1 plus 1 equals 2 really is. Now, it's easy because we take a lot for granted. Like, we already have these concepts built up in us that are implicit and instinctual. Like, it's like, hey, 2 of a thing is more than 1 of a thing. Well, what does that really mean? Well, that means like I have more food, more resources, more energy. That's all anthropocentric. That's all like genetically DNA derived. Like, it's easy for you to think of these things as a finite being that consumes energy and resources. Like, having more of a thing is better than having less of a thing, but that's an implicit assumption that you make by dint of you being a living organism. Now, the thing in of itself that is not a living organism and not a finite being obviously isn't going to be capable of thinking along those lines if it can think at all, which we don't need to assume that it does in this case. So what is it really independent of our desires? And rationality and these type of moral axioms should be a similar thing. Like, if being in a state of freedom is superior than being in a state of slavery, that means that if you could write it logically, freedom greater than slavery, and you could discretize exactly what freedom means, exactly what slavery means, not just from a mere human perspective, but in absolute discrete axiomatic terms, where they are true eternally, regardless of any other externalized agents, presuppositions, biases, and implicit instincts that any living organism could bring to them. And if you're capable of doing that, let's say that you are capable of doing that. We could argue about it, but let's say that you are for the sake of this. If the second you're capable of doing that, and you could say that's like, okay, freedom inferior to, slavery inferior to freedom better than slavery, like the little greater sign pointing to it. It's like, okay, that's absolutely true. And let's say you could stack these things up. It's like, well, what defines freedom in more absolute terms? And then you could go into this like entire thing. It was like we've already established on the simple basis, and you could atomize it down deeper and deeper and deeper. And you could have different domains and different sets, and you're going to have all these sets converging and diverging. Some sets converge towards slavery. Any set that converges towards slavery, we know does not belong in the freedom set because we already axiomatically established that freedom greater than slavery. So it must necessarily by nature be diverging from slavery. Anything that is in the freedom set necessarily diverges from slavery. And we could get extremely pedantic and very deeply logical about this. But at a certain point, once we've built up all these sets and we have a complete, like logographically, syntactically complete in all these discrete terms, at the end of the day, you're going to look at this set and you're eventually going to encounter something like a halting problem that says, like, okay, here is something that diverges from freedom but does not converge to slavery. And therefore, this is not derivable from the previous axiom. And that's when it runs into Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And you might not know exactly when or where that happens. Like I said, you would have to this would be like a decades or century, millennia long process doing this from like human time spans. But this is technically possible in the confines of the universe because it's doable with much more discrete and logical terminologies like numbers and mathematics. If you want to make that anything like rationality and morality, anything like mathematic, where it can be rationally, empirically interrogated and logically formulated with the same robustness that mathematics is, it will run into that problem.
Right. So this is a massive undertaking, but it would take finite time rather than infinite time to do. But even if you were able to do it, you would run up against Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and you would realize that, oh, I can't. It's not possible to prove this. What are the three things? Unprovable.
Completeness, decidability, and
provability, right? Is that it?
Decidability is provability.
Okay, right.
Decidability, completeness, and let's go with provability. I don't think that's the right term for it, but yeah, there's three things.
Okay, yeah.
Womp, womp.
So the actually, I'll just I can bring it up myself.
Yay! You're probably going to get like a lot of weirdness.
Let's see if I can find it. There we go.
It might be consistency.
No consistent system of axioms whose theorems can be an effective procedure. I thought that.
Oh yeah, it's from the consistency. Do you derive decidability or completeness, and you don't?
Okay, right. So anyway, the point is, I guess, that with
and if we want it to be as consistent as Peter Boghossian claims, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it could be. Even if you did, you would still end up in this weird, you're going to be the person at the end of the rainbow that says, okay, is this system that I've derived with the differences as I've defined them as exactly as possible between slavery and liberty? You still have to decide preferability, like the human capacity to have preference and inject preference. Like the rational axioms themselves are non-preferential agents because they are absolute discrete logical axioms. They do, like in this system, freedom doesn't prefer to be greater than slavery. It's merely by dint of its existence that in absolute terms it is, as in this axiomatically defined system that we've constructed around this.
Right, and I mean, look, I'm not quite as good at this mathematical philosophy as you are, but it seems from my perspective that the much simpler and I guess seemingly more correct solution is that there's no such thing as this universal moral axiom that we can somehow derive. It's just that human beings have
even if you say so, you don't, your morality doesn't come directly from that. You don't directly interface with that because as a human, as Sargon said, in your fleshy meat space of a human, you don't start from ring zero with a universal totalizing perspective on absolute morality.
You fundamentally start from a state of nature where you say, I am hungry, and therefore, I guess my quote-unquote moral position is I'm going to go eat something because I feel hungry. And it's my preference to not feel this hunger, so I'm going to go eat something. And that's it. That's where human beings start from. And I guess that what Boghossian is saying here is that, no, actually, the true starting point is this incredibly abstract, out there moral system where we're trying to justify.
Yeah, even if it was, it wouldn't matter.
Right, because at the end of the day, humans get hungry, and whatever fucking highfalutin ideas you have about what is ultimately moral, you are starting from a human perspective. You are not the universe. You are not God. You are a man, and you get hungry. As a man, you do get hungry. You are immortal. You get hungry.
And some other people might also be hungry. That might be a commonality, but they might like to eat different things. And you don't like the sweet things, like I was talking about the waffle burger. It's like the waffle burger to you sounds like the most disgusting thing ever.
Ugh.
But for me, it was kind of decent. And that's just a preferential difference. And we could even get more fine-grained and logically into that. It's like, why do people prefer sweet things other than like bready things or sour things? Where does this preference come from? And we could get really abstract into natural philosophy and evolutionary theory. It's on genetics. Just like, why do you particularly prefer swear things and I particularly prefer sweet things? And we could like absolutely abstract that into fucking oblivion. But at the end of the day, once we had that system in front of us,
there's a very simple explanation for that actually. I don't know if it's evolutionary or if it's purely rational, but it's because I'm not a bitch, right? Bitches like sweet things, non-bitches don't like sweet things. That's just, I don't know. That is the explanation.
so now we have like a logical category of non-bitch superior to bitch, and
that's right.
You see how we could keep doing this forever. But anyway,
yeah,
we should probably continue the video.
Yeah. So there's one other thing that I wanted to highlight in this video. I think it's around the 50-minute mark approximately. Let's see if I can get it.
So, is there any line of reason that you would have to hear to convince you, to your satisfaction, of course, that there are objective moral standards and these are independent of cultures? Like, is there any line of argumentation that you could hear that would change your mind?
I think they'd have to be theological, to be honest.
Yep.
Okay, so you're talking that if there was,
there is of course a way around all of this, right? As Sargon just mentioned. I don't like calling him Carl Benjamin. He's fucking Sargon. It's theological, right? You say, well, morality comes from God, and God is outside of human reason, and that's where morality exists, and it's not possible. I think going along with what we were just talking about, it's not possible for human beings to ever fully derive this complex structure of morality that God created, but it does exist out there in the ether, in the objective reality that exists. You could never touch it. You could never probably understand it, I would guess, but it does exist out there in the ether, and it is something that God, if you believe in God, God has put out there. So that, like, that, I think it would have to be a theological argument, right?
Yeah, and like you could kind of like I don't disagree with that, but you could kind of make it a bit more fine-grained than that, where even in mathematics, there's things like transcendental operators like pi, for example, or e, the number e. Like E represents an eternal asymptote, like always trending towards something but never touching it. And pi represents like a perfect circle. Now, you can make all types of approximations and utilize these things for all types of different mathematical equations and things. But at the end of the day, they're fundamentally non-algebraic. Like, you cannot cook them down into a purely discrete term. Unlike with a lot of numbers and logograms and symbols, like, you can, like, categorize convergent and divergent infinities and put them into sets, which is what Gödel did. But the transcendental operators are kind of like in this weird mystery box set off to the side. They still fit within a set, but what their actual capabilities are and what they truly are in absolute terms is non-algebraic. You can't cook them down algebraically into a single discrete proposition in numbers.
So if I guess that if you did believe, like, if you believe in objective morality due to a god, I would say that the most likely outcome of that is that, okay, you can have objective morality, but those morals are like pi. They're irrational. You can try to get to know them better and better and better, but you can never know them perfectly because they're outside of the you're a squishy human. You couldn't know them perfectly, even if
Yeah,
if they do
it's
exist.
not even about squishy human, because even computers couldn't do it. Even things of
Right,
like
right,
pure
right.
axiomatic rationality could not do that.
Okay, all right, yeah. Let's keep watching.
It would be grounded in metaphysics, and
Yes.
you'd have to then
Of course.
believe those things independent of reason.
Yes.
It's
Sargon has a
very
different take on
hard
this.
to see what a human-derived universal moral system would look like, because any human could just simply disagree with it.
Okay,
And
but to back to the question. So,
Yeah.
is there any set of arguments, a suite of kind of somebody? Again, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like some super intelligent AI, but
Yeah.
you don't have. If
Yeah.
that's too weird, you don't have to go there. But
no, let's
you know,
go with it. Let's go.
Some super intelligent AI. We make this thing that's just totally beyond anything,
Mm.
and it says yes, there are moral facts, and it lays these things out, and then you say to it, well, you lay out a postmodern position. It says no, morality is intrinsic to the structure of the universe. We can rationally drive these are not human centric, and it lays out its arguments crystal clear in a way that you have never thought of. For example,
Yeah.
in chess and Go, because
Yeah.
of computers now, we've kind of changed. Like you can checkmate. I haven't played Go in years, but it's given us a new insight on things. Would you be willing to change your mind if exposed to those arguments, or is this? So
Okay, see, that's I think where Sargon makes a mistake. And you know what? I'm not trying to.
I don't actually think so. Really, it's a bit nuanced.
Okay. So I'm not trying to what is it? Monday morning quarterbacking here, right? Like if I were talking to Peter Boghossian, I personally speaking, I'd be quite nervous. He's a really smart dude. I would probably make a lot more mistakes than Sargon has. But in my position, I believe that's a mistake. That's a mistake because the AI is sitting there and it's going, okay, yeah, I'm telling you why it is that objective morality exists, and an argument that you've never heard before, but it's incredibly fucking brilliant. This is a god-like intelligence, not a god intelligence, but a god-like intelligence. Incredibly smart. It's an AI, but I would say that at the end of the day, is the AI God? No. So is it a material construction that exists within the universe, whether humans built it or aliens built it? Is it something that was constructed within the universe entirely materialistically? Yes. So, given the fact that it's not God, it has all the same issues as everything that we've been talking about. It can't actually probably tell you anything more about morality than can otherwise be derived. And in addition to that, maybe it can explain it to you, but how good would this AI be at explaining this idea of objective morality, derivable from first principles? How good would that AI be at explaining that concept to a cow? I don't think that it would be very good at explaining that concept to a cow whatsoever. Whereas, a cow doesn't need to understand objective morality to continue to be a cow and to live on Earth and be naturally selected for and continue to survive. What it needs to know is it has to be able to feed, fight, and fuck, or live, laugh, love, I suppose. But that's the purpose of the cow. That is actually, as far as my opinions go, that is, I guess, the kind of the more like that's kind of the, it's not a universal morality, but it's the system of quote unquote morals that we seem to exist under. It's like, can you feed, can you fight, can you fuck, and that's it. And that is applicable to both man and cow, whereas these lofty ideas, they're only applicable to man. And it doesn't make any sense that if you were to invent a universal morality, it somehow it's completely anthropocentric. It only applies to man ever because man is special for some reason. Like, something about that, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, here's the thing. There's a bit more nuance to that. You're not entirely wrong, but it's a bit more deep than that. Let's say that the AI God machine, whatever this is, let's say that it legitimately knows like some foundational moral truth of absolute reality in the most rarefied of rarefied domains that only its like high and lofty mind on the top of the highest of ivory towers in the form of the Tower of Babel. Let's say that its head actually peeks into the very domain of God itself, and it actually can communicate this to you.
I don't know how it would.
What do you think?
That seems impossible to me because it's still.
Well,
like,
it seems impossible.
Well, because it's still like it is still grounded within the universe. It's a material construction.
That's going to be the problem, but it's a bit more subtle than that. It's like, let's say it pokes its head out of the universe through some machinations and actually can glimpse absolute reality from a perfect meta perspective external to the system.
Okay.
And it actually can tell you like an absolute truth about this. Now, how is it going to communicate that to you? Is it going to use the English language? Because you know a funny thing about the English language, it's very like bottom up and emergent from the internal system. So even words in the English language, the language we're speaking right now, you could say this for any human language as well. The very words we are using in the most fundamental ways are loaded with those human meat space concepts. So is it going to explain it to you mathematically? Well, it literally can't because of fucking Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It can't explain it to you mathematically and discretely and abstractly. It can't do either thing. It can't tell you in English, and it can't show you a fucking perfect formula. Neither one of those would work even if it did know.
Yeah, that seems about right. Yeah, like how if it like you how would like if there was this deep ordained truth that existed out there that we don't know, but it's somewhere out in the ether, it exists. I mean,
what it could do is be extremely charismatic and very subtly manipulate you with like masterful use of the English language or masterful displays of computer calculation, but that would kind of be, it's more placating you and stroking your ego at that point, which for all, if it can peek into the universe, like fucking with a human brain is not going to be a problem. It's going to be a trivial matter. So then it comes down to what is its value judgment.
It could also convince you that that both Hitler was right and communism was right and Martin Luther King was right. It like at that level of godlike intelligence, it could convince you of anything. Like it wouldn't be so much up to it knowing truth, just it being way smarter than you.
If it's going to this effort to convince you of all these seemingly nonsensical, maybe contradictory things, if it's going through all this effort, what is its value judgment? And that's the real problem that you have with the godlike AI. Like, remember when we were talking before, I think we brought this up in a previous episode, like, let's say that a machine, like an AI god mind, could come to the conclusion that dogs are actually cute from its perspective. Not because humans programmed it with pictures of cute dogs, just a purely emergent mind, like parallel to our own consciousness that's completely novel compared to human consciousness, comes up and like converges on this type of similar conception of cuteness in dogs.
That makes almost no sense, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, it makes no sense because if you think of like why humans think dogs are cute, it would make no sense to be like, that must be how the AI came to it, because we empirically know that's not how the AI came to it. The AI didn't spend hundreds of thousands of years in a symbiotic relationship with dogs in hostile environments as a DNA replicator. That's not qualitatively or quantitatively the AI's experience of reality. It literally cannot be, because we could see the freaking AI in the fucking computer bank. It's not an evolving DNA-based replicator that could have come to that conclusion through those means that we did. That's simply not what's happening. And we have no metric of knowing how it is that it came up with a conception that dogs are cute. So we're stuck where either it's placating us and fucking with us and telling us what we want to hear, or it actually did arrive at that in a novel way, but can only communicate it in a way that we would understand by using something like the English language and say, dogs are cute. And that's just placating the human mimetic system, which it's always placating you regardless. It's never really communicating a novel concept external to the human condition because it's talking to a human.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that even if we were able to guarantee that this AI was not trying to mess with us, that it was like somehow we could guarantee and know that this AI was being 100% honest and it was telling us the truth, even then, I think that the translating this sort of like godlike metaphysical objective morality about the universe and converting that into English, that would necessarily be a lossy conversion, like necessarily. So
Yeah, and that's why the Tower of Babel failed and why the language diverged around it. It's like the Tower of Babel in the Bible, the most creepy thing about that is it actually succeeded, but the humans couldn't understand it because the project had taken so long and people had culturally and politically and ideologically diverged from the original project so much that they were all literally speaking different languages and couldn't even understand each other, let alone the true insights from the Tower of Babel. So anytime you make a graven image to poke into the domain of God, you will be confused and confounded when interfacing with it because you bring your emergent weirdness, evolutionary mutating capacity into the equation, which was never originally intended to deal with these abstract axiomatic absolutes. It only deals with like, I am hungry, get food. It doesn't say down, it's like define hunger in its most absolute axiomatic terms. It's just like, no, sentimentally, like emotionally, like feel thing, want banana, get banana, as the monkey said.
I mean, I guess that's kind of the like the way that I view this is that it's kind of like the entire world is like Earth itself, the biosphere that we live in. It's like it's like an ever shifting, rolling, complex, so many interactions going on, just fluid sea of just a bunch of stuff. And then
the shift and the roll and the movement is more part of how the actual system manifests into something like a decision to want banana, get banana.
But the thing is that like humans exist in this rolling, bubbling sea of constant change and interactions between order and entropy and the complex systems.
Yeah, so the absolute
but then
the absolute logograms are irrelevant.
Exactly. Like human beings try to construct these objects. Like we try to construct like this rationality, this mathematics. We try to construct them and we try to build them. But the thing that we don't realize is that even though they seem really fucking awesome and extremely stable, they are fundamentally based on this rolling sea. Like we've created like a raft essentially, but the raft is floating because of the sea of constant change that exists on top of, and we think, oh yes, the raft is actually the fundamental structure of the universe. No, the raft is something that we happen to be able to build that happens to be able to float and has some usefulness, but it's actually the raft in and of itself is context dependent on that rolling, bubbling sea, and then sometimes we as humans we mistake that and we think, oh, actually we've constructed this really nice raft. The raft must be the truth. The truth is the raft, but the truth is not the raft. The truth is just something that we happen to construct. And I think that we've deluded ourselves into thinking that yes, the raft is the base reality. But it's not. It's never been. But it's very alluring to think that raft is the base reality because it provides stability. It provides a sense of like it makes sense for like within the human mind. It's humans like squares. We like our rooms to be nice and squares and with corners and edges. But this is all a fabrication. And in fact, I would argue that humanity has gotten so good at deluding itself into thinking that its own constructions are reality that we've gone so far, and we've started to think that the civilization that we've created holds fundamental truth within it, And then you can actually go even further, and you can say, well, I'm gonna start basing my reality off of the constructs of man, and then I'm just gonna, I don't know, pursue money and like fashion and social importance off of this system that actually doesn't make any sense in the first place. And so you're going back to monkey, but instead of being a monkey with natural selection as your foundation, which I think is much more close to real, you're a monkey that is using human conceptualizations as your foundation. And then you've gotten so crazy, so schizophrenic, that it seems to me like that entire system that we've created, that we exist in right now, that shit is, I think it's very unstable. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It is entropy always brings things back down, and it seems like it's that thing. Not to get too political about this particular point, but it seems like that thing is extremely ready for collapse.
Well, there's kind of a almost Lovecraftian creepiness when you really consider very deeply what the actual philosophical implications of Gödel's incompleteness theorem really are. What you're talking about, it's like, human ideology has this weird problem of fucking up like the minds of men, like you often like to say. I don't think it's so much that that's the problem. I think it has more to do with, it's slightly a case of the memes getting away with you, because the memes, unlike the actual genes that they emerged from, aren't these like finite replicators prone to like spontaneous mutation guided by chemical and physical principles. They seem kind of like this externalized thing. Now, they did come from humans, and they ultimately are under DNA control, although with the machines running away in the bot wars, that's no longer the case. In a few short years from now, it's going to be a parallel species coming from these things. But for now, we could say it's like these external memes, like these ancient mythic moral traditions that seem to be eternal. It's like the ancient Greeks thought that Athens was literally eternal and that it had been there forever. They didn't have any like problem conceptualizing it like that, because they were so close to the emergence of memes in that most fundamental and metaphysical way, that memes are weirdly interfacing with the type of eternity. That's what these platonically essential logograms kind of are in their most fundamental forms. The Lovecraftian cosmic horror creepy element of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, it's like when you get to the end and you find out that the sets are incomplete, they're actually not. It's your inability to discretize yourself and your nature because it's so radically combinatorically complex. You don't know, and you literally cannot know the right levers to pull in order to navigate you into a set that would complete it.
I would say that I think that fundamentally memes are a tool. You and I can agree upon that. But the memes that we've constructed, like I think that what man has done is that he's constructed some very, very awesome tools with memes. Memes are tools. And we've deluded ourselves into thinking that the memes that we have constructed for our own benefit actually show truth. And that would be like a builder looking at his hammer and saying there's truth to this hammer. No, there is not truth in the hammer. The hammer is a tool. The meme is a tool. There is no truth in the meme. And yet we've deluded ourselves into thinking there is actually truth within these memes, even though they are nothing but tools. And if you want to find truth, you actually you don't look up. You don't look up and think, oh, how is it that I can think about all these different memes, all these constructions that we've made, and how can I blend them together in order to create something that is even more true? What you do is you don't look up, you look down, and you say no. Okay. The memes are tools. What is fundamental about the reality that I exist in outside of these memes? Because these memes that we have. I'm talking about like fucking philosophy, mathematics, science, politics. These all came out of humans. They didn't exist before humans existed. They are tools that we invented in order to better understand the universe, but that doesn't mean that there is truth in them. There's something that exists on top of of the phenotypes, and the phenotypes exist on top of the genotypes. I in fact, to some extent, I'm not sure that it's even possible to find genuine truth within memes. They're a useful tool, but they're not the universe. They can't be truth, in my opinion.
Well, I'm not entirely disagreeing with you, but there's like a very important reason as to why that is. In Gödel's incompleteness theorem, you could reach this point where you seem to see like the set of all
That's a
sets
meme
does not
as well,
actually
by the
contain itself. Yeah, it is a meme, and that's kind of the point. But here's the thing. Here's where it like kind of gets a bit weird and cosmic horror and Lovecraftian. Like the set of all sets doesn't contain itself, and you're like external to this, looking on from the outside, looking in, and it's like, I seem to have run out of numbers and places to go, and now I'm at. There's a good video about this on Gödel's incompleteness theorem that we should probably put in the description along with the Sargon video. It's a 30-minute video that explains this in the form of like cards, which is basically just the Gödel sets anyway, numbered from A through G.
From Veritasium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And A through G, it's like the last Gödel card H doesn't exist because 7 becomes like this is not derivable from the previous axioms. That seems to be like the systemic contradiction. When you go to number 7, you run out of rope effectively in the set theory. But you don't actually. What you actually encounter is a much more profound question about the mimetic creature that's constructing these tools, as you put it, this set of sets in this mimetic set system. The question that you actually arrive at is, do you contain yourself?
That seems like one of those questions that's completely meaningless and sounds profound, but actually means nothing. Do you contain yourself?
Well, think of it like this: like everything that leads you to be the agent you are right now, is that or could that ever be perfectly contained in your discrete consciousness in this momentary instant?
No, that's impossible.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about the entire life you've lived. I'm talking much more fine-grained than that, down to the genetic, chemical, atomic level. Like, can you comprehend yourself as a discretized value that could be inserted into this set in those absolute terms that you would have to complete this?
No, absolutely not. That would, I think that violates information theory. Like that's
exactly. That's the problem you actually encounter. It's like you are actually the number 8 Gödel card that has the meta perspective in on the system, but from your perspective of your actual self in the real world, you are so vastly combinatorically complex that you literally cannot know which exact series of levers and domino falls would have to be set in reverse order for you to algebraically discretize your existence as a human individual instance of an organism on planet Earth and everything that entails back to the very beginning in the most absolute logically concise terms. Right. In order for you to put all of that together, you would have to have an even higher meta perspective that is basically a God's eye view that Peter Boghossian often likes to talk about, and is why Sargon disagrees with him so vehemently on this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in order to self-contain yourself, you not only would you have to have yourself in that, but also the context of yourself, because you are not an island. You are in the context of your civilization, of your environment, of existing on the Earth that is revolving around the sun in the Milky Way galaxy. Like, it's not possible to contain yourself within yourself. It's an absurdity.
You could do it with all the math, even the divergent and convergent infinities and the fucking alephs and the omega and the epsilon infinities and all these like stupendous, like platonic, larger than life, larger than time spans of the earth. Like 50 numeral places of pi is enough to calculate the circumference of the entire observable universe, but pi has more than 50 decimal places. Like, you can do it easily with all these things in mathematics, like Kurt Gödel demonstrated, because they are not emergently complex things. They are pure, absolute, squeaky clean with a mirror sheen on it logograms that mean in absolute terms exactly what they say they mean, and they communicate that to you in absolute terms with exactitude.
You know, I've thought about this myself. It's like when it comes to like human rationality and logic, it's all very clean, like you said, and it all makes sense, and it's very beautiful from the perspective of a man. But at the same time, how much of our universe is actually squeaky clean versus how much of it is actually the outcome of an insane combinatoric complexity that exists. Like, for instance, the three body problem. Something as simple as having three pinpoint like objects that are rotating around each other essentially cannot be solved with mathematics, and that's an incredibly simple thing compared to the rest of the universe, which is just it's like, to some extent it seems as though rationality, even math and physics itself, it's a raft that we have constructed that has some usefulness, but it cannot describe the universe. Like I was thinking, this maybe a couple months ago, but even if we had like just derived from the gods, it was just ordained upon us. We suddenly had the grand unified theory. Even if we had that, the grand unified theory would then have to be calculated, and I'm not sure that it would actually give us that much more of an insight on, like, I don't know, like the way that most things operate, because like how many times would you have to iterate that in order to understand how like a 3-body problem operates, or a 4 or a 5-body problem operates, much less like, I don't know, how things evolve. Like the grand unified theory would be a great thing to achieve, but it wouldn't necessarily just immediately grant us with godlike powers, because you still have the complexity issue. Like, you still have the fact that the universe doesn't care about your cold, hard, and clean equations, because it's messier than that.
Now, this is where I get really transcendental and weirdly metaphysical. From my perspective, the reason why the discrete logograms, like the absolute meaning of number 1 and 2 and so on, and all the sets and combinations of these things you could put together, the way that they're so squeaky clean and seemingly absolutely pure and discrete and self-contained is because they are actually eternal and timeless, and they exist in this pure rarefied domain of absolute ideology, as Savoy-Zizek would say.
That sounds a lot like Platonism, and I reject it.
Yeah, it's pure 100% Platonism, because when you get down into the messy real world, like, nothing seems to ever really work perfectly right, and the 3-body problem, the things don't seem to orbit, and they collapse and bump into each other at a certain point, and everything devolves into this fucking chaos. It seems that way from this finite temporal perspective of us humans talking about this, from us, because we're not eternal. We haven't went through that literally timeless refinement to where we can contain ourselves, just like the number 1 is perfectly in hyperstasis, containing only the very ideal concept of oneness. We're not that clean, and by our very nature we cannot be that clean, because if we were, we wouldn't be human anymore. We would be like some type of godlike eternal creature of white hot essentialism in some heavenly divine rarefied realm.
Okay, so are you saying that, like, something about our concepts of, like, rationality and mathematics, they've almost gone through like a Newtonian like a calculus, where it's like you take the limit of it, and then you've gone all the way through infinity, and then you get some sort of truth back, like you know how to do the integral or the derivation of the equation. Like, are you saying something similar to that? It's metaphorical, but
yeah, something. Well, when you're a human doing calculus, that's what you get when you go through integral calculus, and you get all the derivations and the limits and the trigonometry and stuff like that. It's like that ends up what you're getting, because you're doing like this really hyperstatic, self-contained, pure axiomatic logical process that doesn't get messed up and fucked around. Like in physics calculations, for example, you can derive like the gravitational constant. And if in this pure physics experiment you just write what would happen if I threw a ball into the air with X amount of force, how much would it come back down, and how fast would it come back down? And in the pure experiment, you can throw that ball up infinitely many times with that exact same perfect amount of energy, and the exact same perfect result is going to happen when it hits the ground and bounces X number of times. But you realize in like the real world, it's not that clean, and you could throw balls, and you're not going to throw a ball with exactly 100 newtons of force to the exact decimal point of 100.0 times infinity. You're going to throw a ball in like this messy way where it's like not quite like 97 point blah 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 newtons.
Well, you could never throw it the exact same way because of the Heisenberg uncertainty
Yeah.
principle. It's not possible.
Yeah,
to throw it the
that's
exact
even
same way.
a confounding thing. Like even like the human muscle twitches and stuff, like if you made a machine that was more and more and more perfectly engineered to do this, like you said, it still wouldn't because of like the very nature of the quantum flux.
Okay. With that, let's try to close out the show, and let's just watch Sargon of Akkad. I think that he misanswered this question. Maybe you think that he answered it correctly, but let's watch him have a brain fart real quick. I respect Sargon so much, but he does have a massive brain fart here. Let's watch this for entertainment.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, of course.
Okay.
Like,
So it's kind of a trick question then. So if you say yes to that, then you're saying that there's something intrinsic to the structure of reason, which is itself objective and universal.
right. So to say that it's objective and universal, I think we're presupposing an argument we haven't made here,
Okay.
right? The universal supercomputer, the super smart supercomputer is making it, and so I would be more comfortable to change direction slightly, because I'm not sure that we're characterizing this correctly.
Okay.
Okay, well, there's the there's the brain fart. If you guys want to know what Sargon had to say about this, watch the video. It is such a good video.
Yeah, I watched this all the way through, and he kind of
brings it back.
he gets close to an answer, but you could tell it's not. They need to bring up Kurt Gödel more often. Like, I've never seen many people bring up Kurt Gödel in like this type of philosophical context before. Not many people do, but when you realize the real implications of that and start bringing it up, you can't help but get into like metaphysics and the concept of the transcendental, because those become like immediately necessary to make any type of like moral judgments or claims.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, well, with that, thank you everyone for listening. If you like what we're doing, leave a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment. Please tell us. I want to hear more. I want to hear about why it is that Breaker is a piece of shit. It's very important that you leave a comment below saying that Breaker sucks. It's very important to me. I want to hear that. But with that, peace out, everyone, and Breaker.
Super Mario, we need to talk in the Rebel Wisdom server. You know who you are. You're our #1 fan. I bet you have some like interesting insight on this type of thing.
All right, peace out, everyone.